Hi, my name is Maria. Welcome to my channel, MH Books. I'm going to film part of my wrap-up of 3 books which would count towards Women in Translation month. I actually only read 2 of these during this month. One I've just finished in July, so it's just before Women in Translation. But I thought I'd put them together as people are still thinking about their TBRs, especially those who are doing the readathon at the end of the month. And you know, it might be of interest to somebody. It will be filmed in stages. Today is Wednesday morning. I'm extremely busy this week. I have very little sleep. You probably see it at the moment in my eyes. I have just the cinema tonight, so it's not too harsh. But I have my old job I have to go to at the end. It's when I finish work tomorrow. I have to go to my old job on Thursday night, and then on Friday night I have the dentist, and then on Saturday I have a very special guest visiting me who may or may not take part in cozy reading night. She is not allowed in front of the camera, but she may be sounding behind the camera. Okay, so that's that catch up, right? Because I'm not doing Friday reads because I'll be at the dentist and I want to be able to speak afterwards. So to get on with the books, one that I finished in July is Mouthful of Birds, which is Samanta Schweblin. This is translated by McDowell. Okay. It's a series of 20 short stories, quite well known amongst YouTubers, or booktubers I should say. These are strange, surreal stories. They make you feel, well, they made me feel like somebody had walked over my grave or something. When I come to the end of them, they're extremely surreal. They're like half the stories like nightmares. They all seem to raise this question in your head. So the first one is what's the name of it? Headlights. In Headlights, it would raise questions such as, would men and women really do that? The title of story, Mouthful of Birds, it was would a parent do that to support their child? Butterflies, which is one of my favorites, is oh my god, if that had really happened, it's like a nightmare that you would have, that you would wake up. Would that really happen? It's that kind of surreal, unsettling feeling. These stories are not for everybody. I sometimes see them classified as horror. They're not horror. They have a couple of supernatural elements, maybe more magical realism than the supernatural that people think attached to horror. It's more like nightmares. I really enjoyed them. I liked the way that I read them too. I read them as stories on the bus, and then because each ending is so unsettling and eerie, I had to stop and think for a few minutes and not do any more reading, and then I went off and I read something else completely differently, and that worked for me. I know it doesn't work for everybody. The criticisms I've seen of them are like my favorite story, which is Butterflies, was criticized by somebody known as being what somebody would have produced in a beginner's creative writing class. Well, that's probably me, so that's probably why I like it. So that may be true. Trying to think of what else has been criticized in it. Look, you're going to find the criticism. People like it, loved it. They're comparing it a lot to Fever Dream, which I've not read. Fever Dream being a full novel, nothing like these. These are 20 short stories and just over 200 pages. These are quite short stories. And they're about the impact of the ending, and that's really what they're about. So you either like them or you don't. So if you don't know whether you're going to like it or not, I suggest, because the short stories borrow it from the library, or just sit in one of those bookshops where they have, you can sit down and just read one and see how you feel about it, and then you'll know. So, Mouthful Birds, Samanta Schweblin. I'll be keeping this book. It was 5 stars for me, but I do admit it's not for everybody. I have to check the time because it is the morning. So the time is 7:15 in the morning. Okay. So probably have enough time to do the next book, and then not the next one after that. Okay, so Sylvia Oaks Purge. And it is translated by Lola Rodgers. The front of this book, okay, this is a psychological thriller. It is also historical fiction. The front of this book, yes, it's intriguing, isn't it? It's lovely. I'm not sure what character it's meant to be. We have 2 characters in this book. It starts off in 1992 in Estonia, which would have been Soviet Estonia at the time. And an old woman finds a young woman collapsed asleep in her garden. The young woman has dyed blonde hair, which is why this wouldn't be her. So is this the older woman? The name of the older woman is Olga. I hope I'll put the spelling down underneath. I hope I pronounce it fairly okay. And Zara is the younger woman. The 2 would appear at first glance to be poles apart. One of them is an older woman who you've been introduced to, who's living in Estonia, is cooking her own foods, making medicine, is very deeply attached to nature. The second one is wearing Western clothes, has dirty blonde hair, done up fingernails, and for some strange reason is wearing slippers and has been found asleep. But the 2 of them are intimately connected, and you find out over the course of the novel how the 2 of them are connected. This is a psychological thriller. It is also historical fiction. We flash back to how our 2 protagonists, Zara and Alida, back to 1991 and 1992. So we have that period going back and forth. We also have a period from 1936 up to the present day, which is Alida's story, which ultimately connects them too. Alida is not a nice person. You don't like her, but you understand what she does. The prose in the book is simplistic. It just tells you like they walked into the thing, it was quiet, blah, 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 blah. But every now and again, there's some imagery in this, which are just fantastic. I think I marked in my notes, if I remember correctly, 256, which is also a bit of a sad bit. But I won't read that because that's a spoiler. So in the barn, Lida left the smell of onions behind. She leaned against the stone foundation. Her hands were red as she rubbed them with the scrub brush and cold water. She was tired. So extremely simplistic, but very good imagery in that language. Yeah, I don't want to read the next bit. I don't want to read the really good bit that gives away. Extreme violence against women in this book. Very graphically described. It's alluded to in Alida's case and described extremely graphically, no holds barred, for Zara, which was an interesting choice in that, you know, Zara is a modern woman where these things are more likely to be talked about, whereas Alida, the problem was it wasn't talked about. And Alida's problem is that she didn't talk about it. So I thought that was a good choice of the authors. Beautiful book. It really is violent. So it's extreme trigger warning for that one. I do recommend it. It's a psychological thriller with the endings, but it's also literary fiction. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, then why not try it? So what time are we on? Do I have time? really shouldn't be talking so long, that's my problem. Okay, 25/7, so let's have a go, okay? So the third book, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, which is a Blake quotation. Olga Tokarczuk, which I hope is getting closer to the pronunciation of her last name. This was also bloody amazing. Totally fell in love with the central character in this one, and I won't give her name because she doesn't like names. She gives people names that she thinks are more suited to them. She's a very eccentric old lady living on the plateau on a mountains range on the Polish side, and over the other side of the mountains is the Czech Republic, which she talks about a lot. And she also has this great imagery of the winds coming from Berlin and things and blowing onto her, and like, you know, she's breathing the same air as other people. So you feel this, she wants to escape. You also understand from the beginning that something terrible has happened to her, and that's before her neighbour, who she calls Bigfoot because he has big feet, is found dead by her other neighbour, Oddball, because he's an oddball. So the names in this book is particularly easy, so maybe that's why I like it, because there's no problem with pronouncing names or recognising who somebody is by their name. This woman is so eccentric. She loves astrology. Astrology isn't real, but she has amazing theories about it. She has very strong, she lives in a neighborhood of hunters, and she is a vegetarian and an animal lover. And she truly believes in equal equality for animals, because her theory, this book is about a series of deaths that happen in this isolated, well, it's not even a village, isolated area on the mountains in Poland, that the animals are seeking revenge. So that's her theory. She is a corrupted Miss Marvel, whatever one of my Goodreads friends said. She is, yeah, absolutely followed her, was with her all the way. I understood everything she said. Olga Tokarczuk's writing, okay, and the translation by Antonia Lloyd-Jones are amazing. Let's see, can we find a piece? You never find a piece when you need to. You feel like you're under ways. This is her theory on hunters. So pulpits are those hunting things that the hunters use. Like, if you're a bird watcher, you have one that's hidden, and this is a hide for a hunter so that they can shoot the animals. Just look at the way those pulpits work. It's evil. You have to call it by its proper name. It's cunning, treacherous, sophisticated evil. They build hay racks, scatter fresh apples and wheat to lure animals there. And once the creatures have been habituated, they shoot them in the head from the hiding places, from a pulpit. So that's kind of how our protagonist talks and thinks. It is literary fiction. Please don't expect a whodunit from this, because who did it is bloody obvious. But how we get there, it is the joy in this one. Absolutely loved it. For those who love language, descriptions, who want to feel like they're in the mountainside, want to feel that they're with a very eccentric old lady who has friends called Dizzy, who translate Blake into Polish, which was interesting because they're having troubles translating a verse, so they translated 3 times the same verse, but of course this translator is translating the Polish translating it back into English 3 times, so So the translator, which is Antonia again, is it Antonia? Oh my gosh, me and names. Antonia Lloyd-Jones had to translate a mistranslation 3 times, which was interesting. Loved it, recommend it. If I had to pick over the 3, this is my favourite because I genuinely loved Olga's characters in this one. So that's my very quick wrap up. I hope that whatever you're reading for Women in Translation, that you're enjoying it. And until next time when I go to talk more about my horror novels, bye!